Welcome back to Cool Seminary Tutorials. Hi, I'm Professor Wendy. Today I'm excited to introduce the main plot of the history of Christianity and its three main periods with images or symbols that I hope will help you remember each major period. First, let's look at a rough timeline with three major periods: ancient, medieval, and modern. I like to think about these three periods as a trilogy or a set of three related major dramas which, taken all together, cover the approximately 2,000 years of the history of Christianity so far. It's important to emphasize that for 2,000 years, there's been a continuing plot that unfolds in the history of Christianity, just like any story or drama or movie has a plot that unfolds as the story is told. In the history of Christianity, this plot revolves around Jesus' very specific directive to his followers before his death to go and make Jesus disciples of all nations, teaching new disciples the same things Jesus himself had taught his first followers. Now, if you know anything about Jesus' disciples, you have to wonder if they were competent enough to fulfill this rather audacious mission. After all, the disciples were only human, just like you and me. You can find Jesus' directive to his followers recorded in the Bible in the book of Matthew, chapter 28, verse 19. The symbol of a cross represents the overarching plot of this assignment, which is more or less carried out by Jesus' followers across the three periods. In addition to the image of the cross, which symbolizes the whole history, we can also apply a unique symbolic image to each separate period to help us remember the story or drama of each part of the trilogy of the history of Christianity. I like to use the image of sandals for the first period, a crown for the second period, and an iPhone for the third period. Now let's look briefly at the first period, which takes place roughly between the birth of Jesus Christ and 600 AD, a year commonly associated with the fall of the Roman Empire into which Jesus and the early Christians had been born. The image of sandals is appropriate for this period because these ancient Jesus followers pretty much had to get where they were going by sandaled feet. This first period of the history of Christianity unfolded in the region of the world where Jesus was born, in the Mediterranean Middle East that was part of the territory ruled by the then mighty Roman Empire. As we shall see, the powers that be, that is, both governmental and religious leaders, were not only not friendly, but initially they were mostly hostile toward the newfound faith of the Christians in Jesus Christ, which led to a whole lot of conflict. We'll see in upcoming videos how and why this difficulty changed before the end of the first period, as more and more people began to understand Christianity and as more people became Christians themselves. Finally, the followers of Jesus were given an unprecedented opportunity to live and fulfill their mission in peace by the first emperor of the Roman Empire who became a Christian, that is, Emperor Constantine. This new opportunity was not without challenges of its own, by the way. Many of these challenges became very apparent in the medieval period, and some of them are still with us today. We'll look at some of these in upcoming videos. I've chosen a crown to represent the medieval era because it symbolizes the history of Christianity's newfound political and economic power in what is commonly called the Holy Roman Empire, which was founded during this period and encompassed much of Western Europe for centuries. The second period begins in approximately 600 AD and extends nearly 900 years, all the way to about 1500 AD. In this medieval period, we see the center of gravity and growth for Christianity shift from the Mediterranean world in which Jesus and his earliest followers had lived to Western Europe, with the focal point of power lodged in Rome, personified by the figure of the Pope. The context for this second period or drama is the medieval world, so often associated with kings and queens, castles, cathedrals, cloisters, crusades and popes, warrior knights, peasants, plagues, and barbarian conquests. It was an era of massive, often bloody power plays and brutal wars that left Western Christianity and the world around it yearning for reform and revival by the end of the period. Finally, let's look at the third period, which is known as the modern age in the history of Christianity, which may be symbolized by the image of an iPhone. The third era begins with the growing use of the printing press in the 16th century, which unleashed upon the world an unprecedented capacity for the large-scale communication of the gospel of Jesus Christ. In this modern era, which bridges the ages of science, industry, and technology, you could say that faith in Jesus Christ goes viral, because it spreads like wildfire across the world from approximately 1500 to the current time. The center of gravity for the viral growth of Christianity in the modern age began in Western Europe with the invention and use of the printing press, but shifted first to North America with a vast sea of emigration of Jesus followers of many different denominations to that continent, also to Africa and South America and Asia and beyond. Toward the end of the modern period, the Jesus followers' task of making disciples of all nations takes to the global internet. The internet does not replace the physical gatherings of Jesus followers, but greatly enhances all the related communications and education that help to make Jesus disciples of all nations. To review, the three major periods of the history of Christianity always carry with them the cross of Jesus Christ. But the uniqueness of each period may be remembered by the following images. The first, or ancient, with a pair of sandals. The second, or medieval, with a crown. And the third, or modern, with a mobile phone. Tune in again to find out, what did these Jesus followers have going for them? How were they received by the world around them? What threats and opposition did they face? How did they explain themselves? How did they respond to persecution and even martyrdom? How did God, the Holy Spirit, lead and assist them, seemingly against all odds? Were they successful in their mission? What did they experience and learn that's important for you and me today, many centuries later? I'm Professor Wendy. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, leave feedback, ask questions, and click to subscribe. Most of all, have fun learning.